Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Shadow and Sun Show. Today we are going to light the house on fire. This is our last video.
That's right, folks. Today we are going to be showing you how we make micro scale, I guess you'd call it, islands and ocean terrain for the different sailing ships and nautical pieces we made last week. I'm still working on this galleon. It's going to be a little bit non-standard shape because I want it to be more of a fantasy ship than a, you know, Earth ship, if that makes any sense to you. Can you focus in on this and get a real good close-up on that? It's probably really hard to see, but got the deck. All I need to do now is the masts and the sails, and I'm contemplating doing rigging, but I got to find some really tiny thread to make it look right, and I'll probably just forego that. But so far I've made a bunch of styrofoam shaped things, mountains and crags and things sticking up out of the water. The bases will all be blue with hot glue effects. This one is sort of your skull entrance. A lot of the like the skull and this octopus piece here were made with molds from using some blue stuff and then some dental plaster to pour in there. The same with the octopus entrance over here. But the little guy is going to show you how we do the burning and the...
Should be relatively obvious.
Yeah. And how we get the basic shape. As you can see, I've already started painting some of the mountains and other things like that are going to be sticking up out of the water. So he's going to take a piece of styrofoam.
Right,
look for the flat edge, which is that right here. So that's the bottom.
Oh, okay.
And then you kind of want to make basically triangular shapes sticking up out of the water.
Let's use this one because I'm going to just show you how to make one of these or these. I can't see.
And you want a pretty well ventilated place. And with the barbecue lighter, you get the most control and the most
well
fuel.
ventilated place with the closed door.
Well, that's how ventilated out. And just remember to try to make it triangular. And while he does that, I am going to...
the thing I recommend you do is you get rid of angles.
Yes, you definitely want to get rid of all the straight edges. And then on the foam, once you've cut out a shape for the base of the piece, you're going to want to bevel the edge just so that it'll meet the water. Because afterwards, I will be taking the hot glue gun and making water effects on the base to make it look like the waves are lapping up against the rocks or the crags or the island.
So once you get rid of all those cracks, then just kind of create a triangle. It can still have its flat edge, so just kind of go up like this along both sides.
Yeah,
you
like,
got to get rid of the edges.
Like this one, it's got a flat top for a reason.
The ones at the bottoms, obviously don't get rid of those edges yet. Unless you want to do something more like these, or like these are two. Like this one. If you want to do something more like this, or like those, then go for it. But you would want...
You want me to mount this one for you?
Yes, actually, please do that.
Okay. And then I'll need some more
So
foam board to...
Go up, get rid of more, or melt most of it away at the top. Just create a general triangular shape.
A mountain.
Well, yes, but it still needs... Well, it doesn't need to have, but I recommend that you leave these flat sides for now.
And I just stuck a small portion of toothpick in there just to give it a little bit more strength on the base, and you push it together, and hopefully it's...
If it catches on fire, don't worry.
Yeah.
The house isn't burning down yet.
No, it won't. And if it does, I've got water right here to put it out.
But if it does, I also owe someone $100.
You owe me a lot more than $100. You burned my house down.
No, that's... I was talking to you.
Okay, let me take this.
I mean, if something catches on fire...
Besides the styrofoam? Well, sometimes the styrofoam will actually catch on fire. You just blow it out and you're good to go.
That's what I just mentioned.
And that one's ready to dry. And when all these are dry, we'll finish up with the paint jobs. And next week we will be doing a part 2 for this one, just so that we can show you some of the other steps, like, for example, the paint jobs. And on this little ruined temple, I want to throw some shrubs and things like that, and some grass, and a little bit of... probably not going to actually use sand for the shoreline, but I will put a paint job that gives the impression that there is actual sand there. Another thing I forgot to mention, with the foam board, I found a really easy way to get the paper off the foam board, and that's just to get it wet and then let it dry. Just get both sides of it wet, and it will curl up, but when it's completely dry, the paper peels off like a dream, and you can then use this foam board. Otherwise, if you try gluing onto the paper, it will curl up and warp, and that's really no fun for anybody. Can I see that just for a second?
I almost lit your hand on fire.
Is it going to be about roughly this
Nope.
width? It's going to be shorter? Okay.
Yes. Okay. I'm trying to replicate one of these.
Okay.
And I just touched the paint.
So will that be about enough, you think?
Probably.
Okay.
But I was talking about for this... Oh, you already did that one.
Yeah.
So once you get a So once you get a shape that's roughly moderately triangular, then unless you want it to be super wide like this, then you move on to that. But well, actually, yeah, just in case that's what you want, you then just kind of go. I can't just do that. I'm obviously gonna look at it while I do it. That's something you really want to do. If you're gonna light stuff on fire, at least look at it.
Spoken like a true pyromaniac.
Of course. Wouldn't have it any other way.
And I have to agree with you. Fireworks and things like that are explosions. It's kind of a guy thing, but it's an extra guy thing around the Shadow household. Lighting off fireworks, you know, for the 4th of July and things like that are one of our...
Alright, so once you get something like this, the last step is to, first off, break off any of this stuff, unless you want it for some reason. Unless you want to put it in a pile. I don't know.
Don't worry,
I'm making a new pile.
Yeah.
Once I just throw it haphazardly. Alright, you don't want to get rid of all of it, but something you can do from here is then refine. I would be doing quotation marks if I wasn't holding a torch. But just sharpen up the edge. You want to break up. You want to wait for it to dry first. Don't do what I did.
Yeah, it gets
it's not
hot.
particularly. Okay, it is hot, but it cools very quickly. It's just still gooey for a bit.
Right. And what happens is it makes when it burns, it sort of solidifies and gets rid of the air pockets and makes these sort of smooth, hot, dried glue-looking pieces all over the thing you're working on. And it just looks really unnatural, especially when you paint it. And you can recognize them anywhere you see black.
Yeah.
You're going to want to pull that off.
So, the next part, assuming if you want something like this, that's fine, you can do that. But after this, if you want something like this, just go down the sides. If you want, you can jam it in there, but that's not necessary. Also, when the areas around... that one actually was kind of hot. And it's still kind of hot.
Be careful.
Not hot anymore. The areas where you burn do get harder. Not harder. Well, yes, harder, but harder to burn.
Yes.
You burn something, wait a bit, because it's going to take a while before you can burn more stuff.
You can see, like that, it will sometimes catch on fire.
And you can let it if you want.
Yeah, you can actually, tilt it and get different effects.
I wish that was on fire. The only thing annoying is when you don't actually want it to catch on fire and then it does anyways.
And just put enough glue down on the bottom to hold it down with the toothpick in there to give it a little bit of, you know, stability. That one looks really good.
Thank you.
You want to move on to another one, or you think that'll do it? Do you think they get the idea?
I think they get the idea.
Okay, mount it on the
Then
base.
once you're here, you've created something like this. You wait for it to cool down.
Just put everything on the table. I'll clean it up when I'm done. What the heck was that? I said I'm going to clean up. I didn't say I'm going to vacuum. I'll vacuum
The
tomorrow.
dog will get it.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I also used
No, you won't.
paper clay, and you might want to use some paper clay when you're fixing the
He doesn't like cooked food.
the mold pieces like here and here to meld them into the rock surface. Just get the paper clay good and wet on the underside as well as the top. The underside will allow it to, as you're pushing it in, to sort of turn into a little bit of a putty underneath and stick to the foam bases. And if you don't have, you know, dental plaster and the molds to make that stuff, you can just get rocks or little gribbly bits, or you could even just cut shapes out of clay for ruins or the mountain, you know, to fill in the cracks. I like to use paper clay because it's very, very light when it dries. It's not, you know, super, super light, but it's light enough. It's light enough to where...
Is it, though?
Well, it depends on how much you use, I guess. I mean, you know, if
You
you
get-
if you use a full pound of paper clay,
Oh, is it still wet?
yeah, it is. It's gonna weigh a pound. Well, not when it dries, but
It's going to weigh more than a pound.
no. Well,
It doesn't get lighter. It's heavier.
you think so? I don't know how to see how that's possible. The water's evaporating from it when it dries.
I mean, I see what you mean, but that's much heavier than it was before it dried.
Well, it's also got the wire and stuff like that, but they can't see that. Which you need to finish that project. A couple of projects. But there you have it, folks. That's part one of Island Terrain. We'll go into more of the islands and things like that later. Don't you dare pull that trigger.
How would I pull the trigger?
Because my hair will go up like a scarecrow.
Yeah, I'm not. My finger's not on the trigger. It's far from it, actually.
Okay, good job. So, if you guys have any questions, I'll try to post some of these pictures when we're done in Discord. But like I said, we will be back next Thursday for part 2 of this craft. And then at the end of the month, of course, you get to see all this stuff done. Hopefully I'll have a few more boats done. And we'll set up a nice little scene so you can get a good idea of what you can do for literally almost no money. And suddenly you're playing a game like Man of War again, or Galleys and Galleons, or any other sort of fantasy or naval game that you can think of. Until next time,
Good night.
bye everybody.